All right, so open up what we had last time, which was that 13.1 model view controller, right? This. And I think you guys all ended up just getting the one from the website because everybody had some little error somewhere in their code. So it probably looks like this unless you changed it around a little bit. And just to refresh everybody's memory, this is now, it's 4-channel mixing, but we have blend modes and layer control. So this is, I can have this be b-ball, this be blading, and right now as I instantiate movies, they're going to be on a higher layer than the previous movie that I instantiated. But if I simply change the layer down here to something higher, then that should end up on top. Okay? And you can change the blend. So if I now wanted this to be on top and it's layer 6, and I change its blend to multiply, I get a multiplication blend. Or addition, we even made a special blend mode for addition so that the slider would work for additive blending. Okay, so that should all work because we downloaded it from the website. Now we're going to open the movie vowels patcher, and we're going to edit it. So that one was called movie vowels, I believe. Movievowels.maxpat. Make sure you're opening the original file, not just showing a view of the external patcher. Although I guess showing an external view is hard to do on a B patcher anyway. All right, so you're opening this file, and this is what we have so far. And so what we need to do is add a way to choose what shader we're going to apply for the effects, and then we're going to need to have a bunch of different sliders or numbers or both for controlling the parameters of those effects. So let's start by adding first a U menu to choose a shader. U menu, then go into the inspector for the U menu, click on auto populate, and then under collection name, choose shaders. So right here under auto populate and collection name, make sure auto populate is checked and choose shaders out of the collection name list. Now you have this U menu full of a huge list of shaders. Okay, great. Now we need to first of all send this into a message. And remember the format we're using for our messages here. We're using #1 underscore and then what the message is, what it's going to, and the parameter. #1 again gets filled in with your patcher argument. So like if this is channel A, this will say channel A underscore blend. And then whatever gets fed into the message replaces the $1. So we're going to change this from blend to, we could say shader, but actually the message that I ended up doing file. All right. We separate these out into FX1 and FX2 because we're going to have two slab effects on each channel. So FX1 and then dash, and we'll just call this file because that will be the shader file that we're loading. Is that right? Yes. So #1 underscore FX file 1, $1, come from the middle outlet of your U menu. If you pass that into a message, this is what you should get as your output when you choose something. If I choose Kaleido, I get #1 underscore FX1 dash file td kaleidoscope.jxs. That's weird. That's a bunch of stuff, but don't worry, we're going to route it on the other end and get it to where it needs to go. All right, so now we need to make some sliders to control the parameters of this effect. Give yourself some more room in your patcher and make 5 sliders. Actually, start with just one slider. One slider. Go into the inspector for that slider. We're going to want this slider to go from -1 to +1. So in order to do that, first we want it to be a float output, and then we want the range to be 2, and the output minimum to be -1. Now, if you attach this to a number box or a message, you should be able to slide it up and get the values between 1 and -1. Okay? So then we got one of those. Now we need 4 more. So just duplicate and move it to where you want. And now every other one that you duplicate should just go to the same relative location. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay? We could pass those right into messages for the parameters, but some parameters are going to want values that go above 1. Some of them are going to want values that go below -1. So we could either just not use sliders and just use float boxes, or we could have a scalar on the slider, which is what I did for preparation, so we might as well just do that. Scalar on the slider. So we're going to have a third screen that's going to show you what the scalars are for these sliders, which will affect the output value. So right now they go from -1 to +1, but if I multiply that by 5, then they'll go from -5 to +5. Does that make sense? So we can have a multiplication object for each slider. So duplicate, make 5 of those. Okay, you're going to pass the input into the first inlet of all of these multiplication objects from the sliders. Then we're going to have 5 float values over here. 3, 4, and 5, and those are going to go to the right inlets of each of these. Alright, I'm going to align this stuff. Command Y. Okay.
You quickly some of those slider parameters again, please.
Negative float output range 2, minimum value -1. All right, so let me check my notes. Then the next thing we're going to do is have those get passed into float number boxes. So if you don't want to use the sliders, you don't have to. You can use the numbers. And the numbers will also display the multiplied output of the sliders. So 5 float number boxes, and pass the output of the multiplication boxes into these sliders. And actually, I just realized a bug in this, because before you put any values in these are going to be multiplying by 0, and everything will be 0 no matter what you're sliding on this. See how that doesn't change? Because I'm multiplying by 0. So what we need to do is put an initial value. Also, what we didn't do is set it for float output. That by default, the multiply and the add and any of those math objects are going to work with integers by default to save processor. So you have to specify that you want floats, so you have to give it a float value. So if we just say float multiply 1 period, that will by default make it multiply by 1, so that solves the problem of zeros. And it will also set it up for floats. So make these all times 1 period. All right. Now this goes between -1 and +1. I think maybe my number boxes are too small to actually show any, yeah, they're there. They were just too small to show anything. So actually, in order to give ourselves more room on these number boxes, select them and open the inspector. And now here under render, draw triangle, turn that off. And now without drawing the triangle, it gives us more room on those boxes. And actually we should probably also lower the font size from 12 to like 8. Now it makes them even smaller. Okay. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do now is pass these into messages. #1 underscore f underscore fx1 dash 1. We're doing a generic fx1-1 because we don't know what that parameter is going to be called when we switch shaders, before we switch shaders. So we're just going to send these down random, I mean not random, but generic messages that will go to the right place when they get to the other end. Oh, we forgot, I got to put the $1 at the end of this. So fx1-1 $1, fx1-2 $1 through 5. So fx1-3, 1-4, and 1-5 $1. Taking the output of these of this number box, the float number box, and putting it through that. Let's see, trying to get enough room to make this clear. There we go. Okay. Next is got to pass those out along with this file. This should go out the UDP send, the fx1 underscore file, #1 underscore fx1 dash file, that goes out the UDP send, and all of these messages go out the UDP send. So each one of these will be for controlling a parameter of a slab effect. There we go, that looks better. Okay. Cool. Got our slider multiplicators. We're also going to have next to these put some comments, some blank comments by each of these slider multipliers. This is where we're going to display those, what those parameters are called. I wish there was an easy way to display them under the sliders, but I just couldn't make it fit on the screen. And there's no way of rendering text sideways easily in a patcher, unfortunately. All right. So for this, we're going to receive a slab list, or a param list from the slab. So receive #1 so that it's unique from all the other instances of the movie vals. #1 underscore param list 1. Whoops, 1. We're going to have 2 different param lists, one for the first bank of effects and one for the second bank of effect bank, I should say. So this is going to send out a list of all of the parameters that we're going to unpack. And we're only going to unpack 5 if it has more than 5. Whoops. Unpack 5. I don't need to say 5. No, I don't. That's even wrong. What I need to put is 5 S's for symbols, because you have to tell it what you're unpacking. Unpack symbol, 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 symbol. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right. So when this will unpack those symbols, if the effect has more than 5 parameters, oh well, you're out of luck. Then we're going to we have to prepend set. And we need 5 of those. And now just start patching each of these unpacks into the prepend set, and then from each of the prepend sets into each of the comments.
There isn't a way to run them all through one.
Yeah, there is. It's more code though.
Oh.
You would have to iterate the list, send it through a prepend set, and then send it through a cycle that would then send it to 5 different outlets one at a time. This is easier to I contemplated doing it that way in my prep, and I was like, this seemed easier to follow along to.
Maybe how much of the time you spend dealing with like translating.
Yeah. It's because jitter is a hoarder's code, right? They never throw anything away, and a million different people have worked on it over a really long time. And since they never throw anything away, the syntax changes all the time. And so yes, you're constantly having to translate syntaxes, which can be very annoying and makes you have to, even when you mastered the program, not that I have actually mastered the program, you still have to look at the help files all the time to remember what the hell the syntax is for this thing.
It's for this reason that Indora was created.
I can't tell you that. I still haven't figured out the reason for Isadora. All right. Cool. So that will populate those with the titles of the things when we add the code to the movie player. All right. What's next? I think that's it for that bank. Yeah. So now we just need to do this again for the second bank, but at least we can copy it and just change the parameters a bit. So copy all of this stuff right here from the shader menu to all of the stuff we've just added and duplicate it. Slide it down and go ahead and start changing FX1s to FX2s. So here where it says FX1 file, change that to FX2 file. And FX, all right, so where it says FX1-1, that should be FX2-1. FX2-2, 2-3, and 2-4, and 2-5. like so. And over here, change this param list 1 to param list 2. All right, and now pass all of these out the UDP send. So all of the messages. Whoops. I was minimizing how many times you guys had to type #1. If you use a send and receive, you would need to use your patcher arguments, or else it's going to conflict on the next instantiation of this, right? So you have to use lots of patcher arguments to isolate that send and receive, which is fine. Yes, you're right, though. With lots of spaghetti lines, sends and receives are your friends. All right, so is that, you guys got that? Silence as assent. All right, so next thing we need to do is add this stuff to presentation mode. So we want to add the sliders and these number boxes and the U menu. That goes on presentation mode. Oh, and also the comments and these number boxes. This goes in presentation mode. Shift-Command-P on Mac. And then same down here. The sliders, the U menu, the float number boxes, both horizontal and vertical. And these comments. All of those. Shift-Command-P. And they turn pink. Pink for presentation. Then when you go into presentation mode, they should be where they were in your patcher, but we're going to move them. Oh, that prefix thing shouldn't be there. Where is that? Oh, way over there. Remove from presentation. All right. So the way we're going to do this, so that we don't have, B patchers that are super wide, because we want them to be like faders that slot next to each other, is we're actually going to have 3 pages of this B patcher, and we're going to make the ability to look at other pages. It sounds complicated, but it's actually not that complicated. So first thing we're going to do is take this panel that's behind this. We're going to duplicate that and use it as a reference for how wide we want to make this. I have a feeling we're going to end up widening this just a little bit. But let's start with this, and let's make it a different color. So go into the inspector for this panel. And under interior color, I'm going to choose a green because I like Donatello. And now let's move these sliders. Let's right click on that, say send to back, and then move these sliders on top of it. So yeah, it's kind of close together. I might be able to fit all 5 of these, but then I wouldn't be able to fit the number boxes. I'm going to make both of these slightly wider. So I'm just going to make sure that they're both the same size, I'm going to grab both the green and the purple. So select them both, and then you can drag one of them, and they'll both get resized. So that's looking pretty good. So now it's a little bit wider, but now I have plenty of room for my sliders, which I'm just going to reposition a little bit. And I might put a comment up here and say this is FX1. And maybe instead of this being black text, I could make the text color white and it would be brighter. Okay, we're going to take these numbers now and put them underneath the corresponding sliders. All right, and actually here, let's put this over here and then this right here. Okay, and don't worry about we'll do these next or after we finish the sliders. So now next do the same thing underneath these with the second bank of effects. You can duplicate this FX1 and drag it down and just retitle it FX2. Grabbing these, bringing them over. And these numbers. All right. Then once you got those lined up pretty nice, there was something we may have forgotten. Yeah, we did, and that's we want to be able to bypass this stuff, these effects, and not use them. So let's add a bypass. That's an easy thing. Just put a here. Go back into presentation mode and move the FX2 sliders down to the bottom so that there's some space. Not all the way. Give yourself enough room to put this bypass thing that we're going to put on the top row. Something like that. So there's space underneath this and space underneath this. And put a toggle. Actually, here, duplicate your tag here and put it up here and call it bypass. And make a toggle. Now that I have both of those, I can just duplicate them and drag them down here for this one. Okay, so now you should have a bypass. Now we just need to go in here. I believe those are the two toggles we just made. You got to be careful though and make sure that if you create them inside presentation mode that you don't get them mixed up in patching mode. What you can do is the one that you're going to work on in presentation mode, highlight it, then go out of presentation mode and it will still be highlighted. So that's the one I want for FX1. This is the one I want for FX2. So now we just need duplicate this message here that says #1 FX1 file and change the word file to bypass. And send that in there and send that out the UDP send. Duplicate that message, change the FX1 to FX2 bypass, attach it to the other toggle and send that one out the UDP send. Okay, so this is what we got so far. Let's duplicate this panel, green one, bring it over next to it, and you can use arrow keys to make things easier to nudge around, and change the color to something else. I'm going to do like a light blue, I think. There'll be a one pixel gap between these, like that. Okay, send this one to the back as well. Send to back. And now we got to find those. There they are. These, just drag them over here. And put a comment. I'm going to duplicate this one because it's already in white text. And I'm going to say this is slider multipliers. Now find the other set of slider multipliers and drag them underneath. All right, go ahead and leave your comments extra wide like this, because that way they won't resize the box if the parameter is really long for some reason. If the parameter is so long that it won't fit on the panel, then oh well. I think you'll still understand what it is. But if you make this comment really short, then it will make the panel really long, and it might be stuck on top of some other parameter and make you not be able to read it. So leave them wide like this. You won't see them. You won't see the outlines anyway. Okay, I think that's it for this patch. So did we hook up a bypass over here? Yeah, we did. Great. I'm just going to move these comments by the actual thing so that I know what that is. Okay, so save your movie vowels. Oh, I remember now. There's one other thing we got to do, and that is we have to add the functionality for switching between these two different views. We don't have enough room right now. At least I don't. If you also don't have enough room, I'm going to put this down at the bottom. I'm going to put like a little radio button group there for switching between pane 1 to pane 2 to pane 3. So I'm going to just grab all of these panels and just drag them down to give myself enough room to add this functionality. And then I was hoping we could use radio group because it's really simple and it does what I was talking about with this. You can say radio group with 3 inlets, but it only has a vertical orientation, which doesn't work for me. I want it to be horizontal. So I wanted to do something. I found an object that's essentially the same if you configure it correctly. Get out of presentation mode and find some space in the corner over here. And we're going to use a matrix control object, which is basically like radio button with a million different buttons that you can turn on and off, right? But we're gonna restrict this quite a bit. So matrix control, MTRXCTL, matrix control. Over here on number of columns, we're going to say 3, number of rows, only 1. So that, first of all, makes it have 3 buttons. Then we're also going to say only 1 non-zero per matrix. That way only one of these will ever be selected. See? All right. Go ahead and resize this smaller. All right, and now check what I was doing with this. Yeah. So then we're going to use a change object. A change object makes sure that it doesn't repeat numbers, because this thing sends a 1 both on when you're clicking down and when you're clicking up. So to avoid that from double triggering things, we're just going to use this change object. And then attached to that, we're going to have a select 0, 1, and 2. Cell 0, 1, and 2. Because if you look at what's coming out of this change object, that's a 0, that's a 1, and that's a 2. So this will make bangs for each of those. And if it's a 0, I believe we want that message to be, we need that to send an offset message of 0, 0, which will move the patcher to the left-hand, upper left-hand corner, which is where the top of panel 1 starts. So message offset 0, 0. That's for that one. Then we'll need an offset for the correct X dimension for where your panel is. This is going to be a different value for each of us depending on how you've set up your presentation mode. So the way to figure this out is to go to the panel that you want to be the next page, click on it, look at the inspector when you're in presentation mode, make sure you're in presentation mode, and look at presentation rectangle here. And look at the first number here. It says 152, 0. This one was 50. And actually, make sure that this starts, that all of these here, select everything in your presentation mode and scroll over until that first one is right at the edge of your screen, at the top edge and the left edge of your screen. That way 0, 0 is at that thing. It's in the right spot. And you can see presentation rectangle, 0, 0. The second set of numbers is so that's the upper left-hand corner. The second set is the lower right-hand corner, 146, 517. We don't care about those. We just care about this 146, or in this case, this 147 as the first X value in where that panel starts. So this one's at 0, this one's at 147 on mine, and this one is at 294 on mine. You see how I can see that right here under presentation rectangle? 294. So get those values. So for the second one, the value for me was 147. Find out what it is for you and put offset 147 or whatever your value is. Put a period. I believe it's a float. Okay? And for the third one, I don't know. You're right. But it is a float. It doesn't make any sense. I don't know that they do half pixels. All right. Presentation. All right. This one is at 294 on mine. 294. Almost out of time. I don't want to go forever on this because I want to give you guys some time to work on your stuff. All right. Those are going to go into a this patcher object, which will control this patcher. And actually, before you click any, don't click any of those. I'm wrong. This should be a negative 147 and negative 294. Because in order for that to be, if we were to offset at 147, we'd be pushing it this way, which would go past everything. In fact, we want to push it this way because we're taking the first panel on the screen. We need to move the whole screen this way so that the second panel is now at the edge of the screen. Does that make sense? It will in a second. All right. So that's the first one. We need this 3 times, though, one for each panel, so that when you're in the second panel, you can get back. But don't worry, that's what copy and paste is for. Shift Command Presentation, put this in presentation mode, and put it at the bottom of the panel. Now duplicate it, move it to the center of the other panel, and then duplicate it again. Use that line that indicates that it's in the center of the panel. If you drag it around, it should give you a line. No, mine has too many other objects. Just try to get it in the middle. It's not the biggest deal if you don't. All right. One thing I realized on my prep, I did all of this change and cell stuff 3 times, and you really don't need to, because there's no way for you to select or to interact with more than one of these at a time, because they're on different screens. So just patch this into the same change object, like that.
You also patch them into each other, so like.
No, because that's going to cause a feedback loop.
Is there a way to get the button to stay lit?
Yes, that's what we're doing next. So what we got to do now is when this cell object goes, it needs to trigger the messages to the other 2 things to set them to display the same thing as you just sent over here, so that they always agree. But if you were to do that by just sending the value back into it, you would be making a feedback loop that would cause your program to crash, right? So we need to have these use the word set, which will set the object without making it send its output, which would cause a feedback. So what you do is we just need some set messages. Set, and I believe these matrix controls, they have some funky way of controlling them. You have to give it the matrix coordinate position, and then whether it's a 1 or a 0. And so this coordinate position is 1, 0. It's stupid, but just follow along on this part. If we were using radio buttons, you could just say set 1, set 2, set 3, and it would work fine. But we have to use these matrix controls, so it's kind of annoying. So say the first one is set 001. Then for the second one, and actually just put these above them. For the second one, it's set, I believe, 101. And this third one was set 201. Like that. And so patch each of these messages into all 3 matrix controls. And now if I tap this, see how they're all the same? Try that, make sure that that's true. That when you tap these messages, they all end up working the same. Then this bang needs to go up to the first message, the output of the cell. This first outlet goes to that first message, the second outlet goes to the second message, and the third outlet goes to the third message. Okay? And that should work. I don't know why I ended up with 2. That was a bug. All right. That should work. Save it. Now, you can close this, I believe. And now if you go back into your MVC controller, 13.1 MVC controller, let's save as on this and call this 14.1, 13.4, what am I doing? 14.1, and we're going to call this final 4-channel mixer. All right, these should now, if you resize them slightly, have those controls on them that we just added. You'll also want to make them a little bit wider, just wide enough that you don't see the green from the second page. All right, so let's test that that works now. Boom. Second page, third page. See that? Isn't that cool? Is that working on your guys's? Crickets. You got a patching problem on your button. The first time you hit the first button, it probably won't listen to you. But if you hit the second button, everything should work normal. Well, I guess the first time if you hit the first button, you're already in the first page. The fact that it doesn't change doesn't matter. You're already in the page that you're hitting. So then check what your output on that cell 2 is when it hits 2. What is that patched to? And it might be that your offset message is wrong for that one. All right. So now we need to add the functionality for the movie player, but I want to give you guys an hour to do work on your patches. So what I'm going to do for the rest of this patch, it's going to be part of your. You're not going to need to do a presentation on this, but when we meet tomorrow, next class, you're going to have to do the rest of this at home as your homework. I will have an online lesson that I'll put up by probably tomorrow. It'll only be probably about 30 minutes to 40 minutes. We're mostly done with this. But go through that online lesson and finish this up. But I want to have the rest of the class today to do your to work on your guys' finals and have me help you work on those finals. So check the recording. This recording will be up, and then I'll also have a short online lesson to do the second half of this. Okay?